This is a space for wisdom, for faith, for conversations that shape how we live. Welcome to Enlightened Conversation. Let's begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Enlightened Conversations. My name is Tobi Adelusi. I'm your host, and I'm glad to be with you on another episode of this show. It's going to be a special one. We're talking about fatherhood in the 21st century as against what it was in the 19th century. There's been a lot of shift, and I have somebody very dear to me and a family here. I'm bringing him out to do this for the very first time, but I have no doubt he's a super resourceful person, a proud father who is doing well in that role. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make welcome J.I. Silas.
It's good to be in your podcast. Seeing what you're doing, and happy to be invited to talk about this topic here.
Thank you for coming, pal. Welcome. All right, guys. So let's do this. Fatherhood today looks different than it did a generation ago. It's no longer just about providing. It's about showing up, guiding, and leaving a legacy. In this episode of Enlightened Conversations, we'll talk about what fatherhood was and what it is right now, the challenges, the joys, the intentional choices modern fathers must make to raise children who are confident, grounded, and purposeful. So whether you are a dad or you are a dad to be, or you just want to understand what it takes, this conversation is for you. So let's tune in and let's explore what it really means to be a father in the 21st century. J.I., I grew up in Adelusi. You grew up not far from there, in Ondo Town. So let's talk about what fatherhood, was while we were growing up. What was it like for you?
Back home in Nigeria, where I grew up with my dad there. Fatherhood really was more like, a man that is respected in the home, feared. Not just because it's your dad also, but because he's really seen as someone who would correct you, right? Who's gonna put you in line, really. So, but I'm fortunate to have a dad that is really very, softer, than most men around. Mm-hmm. But I do see fatherhood, coming from the traditional mindset of so as someone who really is there to put you to ground, to make you grounded, to discipline you, to correct you, to love you, but more so to provide for you as a provider.
Yeah. So it used to be, the emphasis used to be on the provider part, yes, and more likely the real terrorist in the house, the authoritative figure. Mm-hmm. I remember that in most places, when mothers can't, really handle, the father figure is the one they use as a threatening one. Like, I will tell your daddy. If you hear, I will tell your daddy, you behave yourself.
Daddy's home.
Oh, daddy is home. That used to be the reset button, for many people. And the traditional father saw it as a good thing, that they were fair. But I think as men grew up, they will have taught it otherwise. Because many men grew up and found out that they never had solid relationships with their children. Yeah, because the emphasis was on providing, not connecting.
That's true.
I was opportuned to have a great father too, but the connection only started when I began to grow up. Same. My father only beat me once, so it was not so much about corporal punishment. My mom did much of the corporal punishment, but he was also the authoritative figure in the house. The connection was not there, But as I began to grow up, he desired the connection. That was the first thing I noticed. But you can't build something on nothing. If you want to have connection with a child, you must start from when he's been a kid, Right. So we began to have frictions, and then one day he voiced out his frustration, saying that, I only come to him when I need something. And I'm like, that's what you are there for, like. Because the posture has always been that when you need something, you go to your dad, right? There was no connection. But by the time I was leaving high school, we began to have conversations. We began to connect, and then we began to build relationship. Now, come to the 21st century. That worked for a lot of children in the 19th century. But it looks like we have a different set of kids in this century.
That's right. Yes. And you're absolutely spot on that. With my dad, growing up, for most of my youth, the emotional connection wasn't really there. Yes, it's not as if, we don't talk, or I don't love him, or we don't, love each other back. But, that affection that we show to our kids these days, it's really something that is really not.
It was not there.
Not there. But I'm just like you. Just like you said. As I was growing older, going for my studies abroad. From my undergrad, I noticed that there was a little bit of a shift, and more so, there was more shift when I started to work for myself. Right. At that point, the dependence on name wasn't as much as it was at the initial stage. And with that, I began to notice that, that was, it started to, the how will I put it? The need changed, the relationship changed. And there was more so that connection with him at the later part of his life, may his soul rest in peace. But, there has been change from, the traditional parenting or fatherhood from what it is now. Now it is expected that you build that emotional connection with your kids from childhood, and especially in this Western world, there is the emphasis on love, mutual respect for one another, not a domineering,
not force,
not a forced love, but mutual respect for one another.
That's
and
right.
Building that relationship, looking for ways to make them feel as if they can come to you at all times. That is something that I see more now than in the past.
That's true, absolutely. And that's I see you touched on the fact that your dad is late. That's something we share in common. But you see, the importance of fathers in the home cannot be overestimated. The truth is, even while they did not initially have that emotional connection, their presence in the home meant something. The reason why we need to talk about that is because there is a rising movement of women who want to posit that you don't really need a man. Well, like, what do I need a man for? Especially because of the way life has evolved. You no longer have so much dependent wives as it used to be in the 19th century. So there are moms who earn as much as the father, or even earn much more than the father. So let's talk about it. What is the place of the father? What does he make any difference in the upbringing of a child, in the atmosphere of the home, if there is a man figure in the house?
Certainly does. With as you mentioned, with regards to some people who prefer to leave up, single mom just to take care of the child, with the expectation that they can actually do the role of a father. It cannot be neglected. So when it comes to the role of a father in the life of a child, is really very important, because there is the nurturing nature of mothers that it's quite difficult to play the role of a dad.
At the
so
same time,
mothers really are naturally internally they are nurturers. And when it comes to a dad, there is still that importance of having a dad in the home. Most times, children look up to someone, and if they don't have, a father figure in their lives, it's really very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And even in this day and age where things happen, there are rate of divorce is high. As a father, we are not only supposed to be a father to our children. We can be a mentor to other kids as well, looking out for their welfare. And this is something that is very important, especially in the 21st century, where there is a lot of broken homes, absence father in the home. And come to think about it, even with the Western world, where we work different times, almost like a 24 hours economy. Fathers are not at home, maybe not because of not necessarily due to the fact that they are maybe separated or divorced. No, it could be due to work commitment and things like that. So it is important that, as father in this day and age, we should look at for other kids as well. Try to reach out to them, and invite them to invite them in if you see them, because it takes a community to raise a child, and that is one of the old saying. And I do believe that father these days is very important, and it is quite unfortunate that there are a lot of broken homes and single parents out there, but it's still very important that as fathers we must rise to that
occasion. Yeah, I agree with you. I think God is such an intelligent God that if either of us could have been done away with, He wouldn't have made us male and female. From biology, from nurture, from everything, everybody comes with a uniqueness to make a home. The man cannot play the role of the woman cannot play the role of the man. So that place where the man stands, I've seen movies or stories where people experimented with it. And I mean, in a privileged position, somebody spoke to me in this year, 2025, had issues, called police for the guy, for our husband, had two teenage kids, and then they asked the guy to leave the house. Just little things that they could have settled. Then after the guy left the house, she now found out that her eldest son, who used to behave, apparently was behaving because of the respect he had for the father. Now that the father was out of the scene, she found out that, in fact, the more she shouted, the more the guy was not listening. That it's not just about shouting. There is something about, looking up to somebody, having respect for this fatherly figure that stands. So I believe that balance needs to be struck. Of course, we know that some guys are irresponsible and they make it tough, their presence even makes things worse. But we're talking about the ideal situation. The man brings, somebody said that men give identity to children. Right. So beyond just being the provider, there is so much, because some women have been taught to now feel like you can provide, I can provide. So what else do you bring to the table? And the man must also know now that the what do you call it? The syllabus of fatherhood has changed. It's not just what you bring in terms of economic contribution. It's about what you bring in the holistic way, in contributing to the family, being the father, being the husband, laying a template for the children to follow. And in the cases where you have children that are already growing up, they must have a model to look up to. And if that breaks down, that's the foundation for dysfunctions in the society. I think a lot of people don't look at the effect of what, the transgenerational effect of some of the things they do. Like you just break things up and that's the end of it. Or fathers who are not present, who are, just fathers by title, but the children can't even. While we were growing up, we saw movies of men who are rich and everything. They just throw money at the kid. They were not there, only to find out that money does not answer all things. The Bible says money answers all things.
and you touched on a very important point, because the involvement of fathers in the, back in the, traditional fathers are not hands-on parents as we know, especially if you grow up in our time.
Yeah.
But with this modern society, it's important that the role of father changes, because as you said, in the past, women most times might not work. Growing up, I have a lot of friends whose parents are stay-at-home mom, and it's still something that is still happening even in this 21st century.
Yeah.
But with the fact that even if the mom is at home taking care of the kids, homeschooling, things like that, different life work balance might work for some and not for others. But I do believe that even for fathers, the role should be hands-on, because wake up in the morning, you try to bathe the kids. It's something that I do. It's almost like it's on Monday to Friday. I do that with my kids, and bathe them, prepare them to school, which is something that it's not
beautiful.
You are there, with the children. You make time to play with them, and as personally on the weekends specifically, I try to make sure that we must have a breakfast that I prepare myself, because Monday to Fridays we try to feed them, take them out to take them to school, so involved in their lives. And this is something that is very important, that we change our mindset when it comes to parenting or fatherhood in this current
That's
generation.
intentional parenting.
It is.
You know, a friend of mine made the joke that when his father grew up and having different children around the world, that they just left him at home because he had no connection with the children. So the mom moves from London, comes to Canada to see one of the kids, leaves, goes to America, and then that they hardly even called the father. I have a friend who said he's never had the opportunity, like him and his father, there is nothing to talk about. They never befriended their children, and the guy just grew up like that, nothing. So except he just sends them money. So the guy said when he saw that pattern, he told himself that he was going to be present in the lives of his children so that when he grows up, they will not just be leaving him at home. And that's hilarious, but it's a life lesson that, you know, the role play is powerful, but at the end of the day, just like going through the toxic Nigerian university system, where lecturers intimidate, terrorize students, and then I finished and then became a lecturer in the same university. And then one day I was talking to a lecturer who did something very nasty while I was a student. He couldn't remember. But when I reminded him, he felt bad. Then I made the point that it's a lesson for all of us. The people you are raising today, who are kids, who are children, they will grow up and meet you there.
That's right.
At a point, in fact, he had an embarrassing situation one day in front of our law faculty. He saw a student that he taught many years ago. And he was like, I taught you. Then that one said, because of the bad things he did to the guy really embarrassed him. So if one is not intentional, understanding that these are human beings and children are very impressionable. Whatever impressions you give to them now, they are first impressions. It stays with them forever. It will take some fathers a long time to correct the impressions of, being the monster general, the terrorists. They said in our generation, if your father is coming home, you have to put on the TV. But again, the point is, some of them thought they were doing what was right. Let's talk about the place of knowledge, because sometimes I tell my wife, people can do better than they know. I don't think that many of them wanted to be wicked, but they didn't know how to do better. And when it comes to family life is what many people just do by default. You get married, you start making babies. There is no training. Of course, there are no formal training institutions where fathers are taught or mothers are taught. And unfortunately, for many people in our generation, the examples they saw, are not good examples. So they had nothing really to learn from. But now that, men have become fathers, how do you educate yourself? How do you, unlearn and relearn, new stuff that will make you a better parent?
Basically, through different means. Like, there are good movies out there about parenthood, books, going back to the scriptures to read about parenting. These are the things we need to do as, to try to unlearn some of the things we've learned, have good role models in our lives as well. Look up to what sort of, families or marriages that you see that you want to model yourself after. Because yes, as you rightly said, there are, most people grow up or might have grown up in a situation whereby it is not the ideal situation, right? It's not the ideal, under the ideal, family or not family, but, parenting, fatherhood. But, we can always unlearn what we have learned. Yes, it could be difficult, but it does take the grace of God and the Holy Spirit. But so for me, I think the one way to unlearn and to, is to pray about it. If you feel like you have those emotional scars from your, living in such an environment, pray. And, with that, you want to continue to look at the Bible. There are a lot of examples that you can look up to. One is our Heavenly Father.
That's right.
Right. So you can look at him and, look at the qualities, how he's, look at his qualities and look at how he loved the church, how he loved us. Right. So, and that is something that we can always focus on. And above all, we have books that we can always look to.
That's important.
Go to the library, pick books about parenting, what area of parenting you need to improve on. And with time, you will start living it, right? Set yourself goals. Okay, I'm going to start being deliberate about this, and that.
Yeah.
And with time, you will see that you are living those things that you want to live.
That's so true. Because I found out for me that it's more tasking to be a father in the 21st century.
Certainly.
What the 19th century father had to deal with is nothing compared to what the 21st century father has to deal with. Because your burden, your load of work has not reduced, but the call to be present has increased.
Certainly.
The expectation from your wife is different from what it used to be in the 19th century. The expectation from your kids is different from what it used to be in the 19th century. So there is so much you mentioned, and rightfully so, the place of being deliberate, intentionality. And with respect to books that you spoke about, because pictures are very powerful. People want to do better, but the pictures they saw while they were growing up, was nasty, was bad. Like you mentioned the word scar. People can be traumatized, scarred from what they've seen that they don't even know until they come around conversations like these, or somebody else has the audacity to point it out to them that something is wrong. In fact, I feel that some people may have been hurt by their parents, by their fathers, and out of hatred for what they experienced, they are now repeating the cycle because they've not been healed, and they've not seen a better picture. So like you said, the place of reading, studying the Bible, looking at the nature of God, there are also movies that could, you just find out that people have great relationships with their children. People are not just making money, they are making money and making meaning at the same time. Because parenting affords us an opportunity to contribute some of the greatest we can to any society by raising wholesome kids. If people really think about it, the damage that bad parenting has done to children with low self-esteem, children with no sense of identity, children with, no emotional wholeness at all. And it's a product of what parents have done, that some of them did not even pay attention. I think the point must be made that when you choose to be a parent, your right to just live for yourself stops.
Certainly.
You're now not just, it's not about you.
That is the case with my kids as well, right? Sometimes I think about it like that, as if I came to the world to sacrifice for you, right? And
that's it.
It is certainly true.
Yeah.
And the cultural expectation has changed as well, right? So, growing, while growing up, fatherhood was rooted in the patriarchy order, and now it is expected that you are involved, right? You make time, you take paternity leave,
absolutely paternity leave.
You want to, that is something now, which was not.
It was never a thing.
You will not hear that in the past, right? So, but in my case, I took it for for both of my kids, time to spend with them and bond with them, because that's important. As for a man to spend those time with the kids,
absolutely,
even from that infancy time, and until they become whole, as you said, as you use that word. So so suddenly the need for fathers to be present is higher than never before, and as we raise kids with the in this 21st century, where there is a lot of information out there, social media and things like artificial intelligence, can show them things, right? Towards the truth. It is important that, we are there, not just, as fathers, but even to show them the word of God, right? To teach them the word of God, to spend time with them is very key. And it's not about spending time with them, just by staying at home or taking time.
Meaningful engagement.
Meaningful time. Trying to teach them things that, because they are so exposed to information, even my little one, they are so advanced, like so advanced.
You can't imagine what those guys know.
No, you can't, right? So and it's important that we spend that time with them, not just and for them to see that we really care. And because if we don't spend the time with them, they will learn it. Someone out there is there to show them or to teach them things that we don't want them to learn also. So it's very, very important that, as parents or as fathers in this 21st century, we must be attentive to our children's need and we must be able to guide them and mold them the way we want them to mold, because they become adults so quicker.
Yeah.
Quicker than than in the past. Where we stay with our parents back home. If I was back home, you can stay with your parents
up to
for as
30
long
years.
as you want, but it's different environment.
True.
So we have limited time.
That's a critical issue you mentioned right there. So you have a limited amount of time to make that impact,
to make that impression and that impact.
True. So you can't even waste time.
You can't negotiate that. It's not negotiable.
That's serious. That puts a lot of burden, considering the demand of work, the demand of family. But I think every man must learn to prioritize. Understanding that the children, that's a great way to make a good legacy. Because at the end of the day, if you don't balance it, if you chase, people chase career. Men, of course, we all love working, and it gives a sense of pride and all of that. But let's talk about that briefly. How do your work and your family, how do you balance it?
That is a word that we have in this day and age, work-life balance.
That's right.
Right. So one of the things we can do, and which is for me, is, luckily I have the opportunity to work virtually, to work from home. And I seize that opportunity as much as I could look for other roles out there that might not be, that might not give me that flexibility. But in the end, my kids are still young, and I want to have that time. So it's all about being deliberate, right? Being intentional.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we can chase money all we like, but what is the purpose of money if you have all of it? And then you have,
broken kids. Absolutely.
Because it's not about the kids; it's really about even the future, right? If I believe that if you choose, or if you have it in mind to become it, to have a child, you must be willing to sacrifice, give up something. Yourself, give up something.
Absolutely.
And for me, that is what I think. Sacrifice in terms of your work. You have vacation days. You don't want to keep working.
Some people do
all the overtime,
all the shifts and overtime. Want to make the money.
You can make the money as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it is not about the money. It's about it's about making sure that you have that you spend valuable time with the kids. So for me, I try to choose. I'm being fortunate that I'm in a career that I can actually
the virtual role. Even for those who cannot have the virtual role, I think the intentionality you mentioned is the key, because in this part of the world, like you said, even the workplace now knows that there is a need for work-life balance.
That is right.
So if that's a concept out there, then you should exploit it to your own advantage.
That is certain.
Sometimes I go to the office, I'm back late at night. I want to see them before they go to bed, spend time, pray together, chat together before they go to sleep. I'm tired. I'm almost wasted. But
and even if
you must make time.
Even in the morning, you can at least try to see what if you are, even if it's to spend some time with them. And the truth is this, the kids may go to school, come back in the later in the day, but it's about finding that time. It doesn't have to be that you sacrifice your career or your work or just for them. No, I'm not suggesting that. But but the point really is that it has to be deliberate.
A healthy presence.
At night, if you're available there to put them, to tuck them into bed, to read to them, that is the time. Even if you are not able to do it Monday to Fridays, what about the weekend?
That's
Are you taking them out? To spend time with them on Sundays.
Cook
Are you taking
them.
them for church? Are you doing something deliberate? Right?
Yeah.
As I said, in my home, every Friday I make it a point. They know when is my I prepare something that we don't normally have the time
not
to
the
prepare
usual
Monday to
dish.
Friday, right? And they look forward to it.
Absolutely.
And that is really my own way of contributing to spending that time with them. They participate in it, and then we try to at night take them out for the extracurricular activities, even if for any reasons I cannot spend time with them in the morning or so. So the point really is that you have to be deliberate, right? So whether or not it's weekend, whether or not it's on a Sunday, to take them to church, and so you have to do something deliberate.
Absolutely.
And they know that this is because they are actually, as you said, they are everything we do for them. They remember, they remember. So we must be deliberate in how we.
I mean, it's been. My father died in 2013, I don't have to keep a calendar of the date he died. The fact that he was present, he loved me, it keeps him perpetually in my memory. You see, when people don't show that they love you, and there is no connection, there isn't really anything, no good memories, nothing. Yeah, so your father is late, it's just late, there's nothing to him, right? Because if all he did, provision is a great part of, of being a father and all of that, but presence is greater than provision. The balance must be struck that your provision is not just monetary. Your provision is a whole duty. You're there financially, you're there emotionally. In fact, the other part I wanted to talk about is discipline in the 19th century fathers or fatherhood and what it is now, living in the Western world where corporal punishments, interestingly, like I said, my father only had to beat me once. I think my mom did much more of the beating than my dad. The only time he beat me, I love playing table tennis. And he found out. Then when one day he was going out, he said, Tobi, I said, sir, I'm going out. Make sure you don't play table tennis. I said, yes, sir. As soon as he left, one of my friends from the neighborhood came home. We brought out, that big stick they used to roll jollof rice, party jollof. That was what we used for the net. We had 2 bats. We were playing. I didn't expect that I was going to come back that early. Then, as if he was also coming for me. He normally will honk from a distance when he's coming, and we know how he used to. But this day he didn't. I just saw the car enter. My friend took off. Then my father came in and he had a koboko, called me out and gave me 6 strokes of the cane. When I talk to you, you listen. Great guy. That was the only time. He would rather speak to you. Maybe he found out that words were heavier for me. I don't like people talking at me, I will feel bad. I really feel so bad when you talk to me. He also found that out, that if you beat me, it really doesn't change anything. But now that you can't even do corporal punishment, considering our African background and the fact that we now parent in the Western world, how do you manage that? Discipline, because it's important.
It is, right? As you rightly said, in the 19th century, fathers have unquestioned authority, right? So, and that is something that it's good if you want to be a king, but not if you want to be a father, right? So it's about speaking and expecting that they have an opinion, they have a voice, because we don't want to give birth, we don't want to raise kids that are robots, right? Voiceless. It's only what you impute, they will say, right? So, so one of the ways is really making sure that even from little, you give them choices, and it's something that I find. Initially, when I first came, to this, to this country, I see kids be so mature, and I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, that these guys were not beating and they are behaving.
Little kids, right? So, and it is really giving them the choices, and they want to get something, they'll ask you do you want this or that? I'm like, is that even possible to give a choice?
They just give you and you must take it back
really
in the days.
That I saw that is working, right? Yes, it's not like everything here is, every, parenting things here, is something
it's
that
perfect.
Is perfect. No. But, when it comes to this issue of discipline, it's something that I see that works. You make it, giving the children less of a voice and just being there as a very strict physical doesn't really work. Kids can understand, and that is something that we must understand in this, in this day and age, that kids have understanding, they have emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
We just need to let them know, and it is how you train, how you raise your child or raise a kid is how they will behave. If they understand that, they need to know when you are happy, sad, understand your emotion, and so that they can read you as well. But if every time we just come in, gun blazing, loud, threatening, that is how they know.
Yeah.
And then they won't even understand sometimes why we are even upset at them. So one of the ways to balance those disciplinary issues here really is to communication, right? Making sure that we are, still have our authority, but still being able to converse and have them understand when they have done something wrong, they are very intelligent. If you ask them, okay, why did you do this? Is this a good thing that you've done? They will give you their response, and they will come to understand it, that this is not right. So that is really one way. The aim really should be to teach them rather than punish them.
That's right.
And if they make a mistake, mistakes are allowed. Sometimes they learn from their mistake, in as much as we don't want them to make much mistakes, but it is okay if you let them fail sometimes. Because in the midst of failure, they can also learn
their
great lessons.
Absolutely. That's true. Yeah, because the goal, is a fundamental shift in cultural patterns, and that goes across our society. Like I was talking to a guy and said, I parked one day in Calgary and a police officer was there. The place where I parked was wrong. He saw me. He didn't allow me go so that he would give me a ticket. He came and said, that's not the right place to park. Then I said, if it's LASMA, they will allow you. LASMA can even lead you into the wrong path, and then so that they can give you ticket. Because the goal there is to punish you, not to correct you. When you see tickets here, they didn't see you when you parked and all of that. Yeah, it will deter you, but it won't kill you. It won't break you. The way punishment training was in our culture, I felt like people didn't know how to balance it. He went the distance to break some children because there was not so much intelligence factored into it. The authority came out gun blazing. I have this authority over you. You have to do what I say. So nobody cares about your opinion. That's something that is a fundamental shift. Like you were saying, even kids here, you have intelligent conversations with them. What do you think about this? And by doing that, you're teaching them to be able to make intelligent decisions.
That's right.
Right? Which a lot of people just didn't have that opportunity. So many people were raised as robots. I was saying somewhere recently that my father wanted me to be a medical doctor. And nobody asked me whether I loved to be a medical doctor. No, that nobody really cares. It was when I wrote JAMB and failed, and the man looked at my SSC and said, well, you did well in school. How come you are failing JAMB? But you never asked me. You just said I should be a medical doctor. Well, I don't like to be a medical doctor. I said, but I never mentioned it. I said, you never asked me. It was just a giving that, in trying, they didn't mean harm. They wanted to guide you to be the best, but in doing that, they eclipsed your person. Sometimes I feel, in that culture, people raise children as if they are not human beings, as if they are chickens, or, that you just have to raise. The idea of train a child in the way he should go is not that you force your ways on the child, but you also discover the child and nurture them. The nurturing part is what I feel a lot of our African fathers really didn't get. And now that they have also become fathers, it may be sad to know that except people really re-educate, unlearn, relearn, they may still perpetuate the same patterns in raising their children. And I feel that if you come across people who are raised like that, some people never saw their fathers apologize. And it makes you feel like, I'm a man. Even maybe some other day we'll talk about the African husband or the cultural husband. People who feel like because I am the authority here, I cannot say sorry. And there are times when you do something to my daughter and like that, like he's showing you that daddy, this thing, and he expects that you apologize. And there is nothing wrong. It doesn't reduce your authority. It just shows that you are a human. It shows that you are accountable, right? And they can also trust your intentions, trust your decisions and parenting, rather than just grandstand and say, hey, I'm the head, I'm the authority here. You lose their trust, you break the connection, they see you as a brute. The love is no longer there. And I feel those are fundamental mistakes that, the 19th century fathers didn't really have, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was just remembering there was an instance. I can't remember what I did to my 5-year-old daughter, and then she said to me, but I just remember that conversation. She said, that I don't like what you did to me, how, what you did and how what you did to me, the other time, I thought I should tell you, and I was really, really shocked.
You thought I should tell me,
And I was
who are
really
you?
shocked. And, but it actually occurred to me that, this girl is actually telling the truth. I can't remember the
exact circumstances
there, but the fact that she couldn't even talk to me and say to me, I don't like what you did to me. I thought about it like, oh,
you couldn't have said that to your father.
There is no way you say it, not even at that age. But it does actually shows that that the kids really have their feelings, and we must appreciate it, because if we don't let them speak, let them voice out, let them have that openness to talk, to tell us how they feel, even when they are being bullied outside, or even when they are being, when they are going through different things,
they will never be able to stand.
Openness to talk to you, because very soon, as we said it earlier, that we have a very limited time to take care of these kids here. They will go to school soon, universities and so on, and they will marry. And so if we don't have that, if we have not built in that habit for them to feel like they can come to us at any opportunity, that will not happen. And it starts from this age.
That's
true. It starts from now. No, there is no time that is too late to start, to change. Now is the time. If you feel like this conversation is landing or is landing on you, it's time for you to rethink how you're doing your parenting. You want to have an open, honest policy with your kids, so that they can come to you at every opportunity, because the society, even now, it's expected.
They want to take your children from you.
That is right. So unlike in the past, where public reputation is what matter, in fatherhood, right? To protect their own reputation.
Yeah.
But now it is more for family bond.
That's right.
It is more important that as parents, as fathers, in this generation, we are very open with our kids. They can come to us. They can talk to us. Otherwise, they will talk to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's how some families lose their children to this system.
That's right.
Because if you look at the pattern of the system, people will call your child and ask him questions, allow the child to express himself or herself. In doing that, they gain information. And they gain trust, they gain information. So when the children or the child now feels the need to say something, and he doesn't have parents who listen, who run an open door policy, that he can always, because every father, every mother needs to gain the trust of a child, such that if anything happens, you are the first person your kid wants to talk to, not a teacher in school, not a counselor somewhere. I think that's the genesis of trouble for many people who lose their kids. The trauma of making that shift from Africa down here, but not blending into the culture that they now live in, and that's important. I remember like my father did something to me, and the second day I went to him, he made a judgment. Our parents make a judgment and believe that their judgment is right. Even when you're saying you are not the one that did it, especially mothers. Mothers feel like they are the greatest prophets ever. Like, I know you are the one that did it, but I wasn't the one that did it. So the second day I went to him and I said, Dad, what you did yesterday wasn't good. I was not the one that did it. He said, really? I said, yes. Then he apologized. That's one of the things I still remember about him till tomorrow. That he apologized. I mean, who am I? Like, look at all of my body right now. He apologized and he meant it. It's not just, there is this culture of, is this adage or proverb in Yoruba, like, there is nothing you do with being an elderly person than to cheat on a younger person. I don't know if you've heard that before. Like, kosin katon fi agbalagba she, ju kan fi re omode je. And, those kind of philosophies ingrained in the mind of a person who has the position of authority. And I feel this is something that runs through the fabrics of the African society. That's why when people who are supposed to be leaders get into offices, they use the office the way they want to use it. And if you raise objection, they crush you. Like, you're not supposed to talk. The leader cannot be wrong. He cannot be in a position of, having to apologize to you if you're a subordinate. And that's terrible leadership. It makes us dictatorial, despotic, authoritarian, and you can't raise a wholesome, family children that are not broken, battered, when you're just ruling like a military officer. That's how a lot of African fathers rule. No sorry, no apologies, no conversations. They make decisions, hand it down. I've heard of guys who went to university to study what their fathers wanted, only to finish and then go and do what they want to do. Because such fathers never even entertain conversations, no matter how reasonable you are. You do what I want you to do. And one day I was having this kind of conversation with my father. I said it's a product of how they grew up. That when they were growing up, their father was the he that must be obeyed. Whatever he says is law. So that my mother will say, our own father will say, you can complain, but you must do what I said. So it really doesn't matter what you think. Nobody really cares. I've seen movies, a few movies, where a child has an emotional problem and wanting to talk to parents, and they were not there, and unfortunately took very drastic decisions, in some cases ended their life. And I feel we should talk about that part of listening, to younger people, because growing up itself is complex. I think a lot of people just take it for granted because they grew up. In the 21st century, growing up is much more than you went out, I pay your school fees, you came back home. Children also go through stuff. If a child is bullied in school and there is no relationship between that child and the parent, there is no way he's going to tell you. And those are some of the issues that come up, with parenting in this part of the world. What do you think fathers should do? Those who migrated fathers, are there lessons to learn? Are there cues?
As we've talked throughout the podcast, one of the main things that they need to learn is to have a shift of their mindset, because what worked, in the past, doesn't always work in the future, and it's not always the best. There are good things from our parenting style, that might be transferable into this environment, which is one of the main ones, the provision. Being a provider is still very important.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it is the opportunity to allow the children to speak is one of the main things that we've talked about. Being there for them, not just being a provider and not being able to take care of the children. You have to be hands-on than you were than our fathers may have done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So being there for the kids, in their life, being there to listen to them, having that open door policy for the children to feel that they can come to you, talk to you whenever they are going through things, or whenever they feel like you got it wrong. So that is part of the things that I think that they could learn from here. And giving the children the opportunity to make choices, right? As fathers, we may not know all. We may have good intentions. Not often that we have bad intentions when we try to stick to our guns, but we must let the children participate in things, in decision making. Decision making could include, as you said, what do you want to study? As simple as that. That way you can at least know the child's interest. Being there for the children, especially even in the things of God. There is a lot of things in this Western world that might take you back in terms of your spiritual life. But trying to do, even though it might be difficult, let them understand that the fact that they are here, they still have to go to church. That is very important.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing that we can do on our own. We need we need them to be, to have that, lessons that we learn from church. Because
I think you just touched on something very important. Let's quickly talk about it.
Sure.
The African father, for most of them, they were not the spiritual ones. They were not the priest over their home. Like mothers used to be the ones who occupied that office. But when you look at somebody like Abraham, God said, I know Abraham, for he will command his children to obey me. So the 21st century father needs to be more than just a provider. He needs to be a priest. He needs to be a prophet over his home. He needs to be the gatekeeper. That was the assignment that was given to Adam. Adam was given the assignment to, if he had done his job, the serpent wouldn't have been able to override his dominion in the Garden of Eden. So the contemporary fatherhood involves you being the priest of your home, leading the children, devotion, let them see you pray, study the Bible with them. You are doing a discipleship program. That's essentially what it is. And that's not a church term. It's a leadership term, that you're raising young people to know the way of the Lord, to do the things of the Lord, to believe the Lord, starting from leading them to Christ. These were things even in Christian homes, those things were taken for granted. Like parents really sitting down and preaching the gospel to their children and making sure, do you understand it? Do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? That's part of parenting, and it comes out of intentionality, because we just let those things like he will find his way in life. But that's not the idea. The idea is to train them so that they can find their way in life. You don't just leave it, and you can't just say, oh, I go to work. Yeah, you go to work. That's part of work. That's part of what God gave to Adam. But he also knew how to host the presence of God. You could hear the voice of God. So you cannot be a one-sided person. Like, I go to work, that's it. No. You have to be involved in the home. You have to lead from the religious or the Christian standpoint, the spiritual standpoint, and be a total man. That's why I said being a man now. I saw a video on social media recently. The guy was changing wares. He was a mechanic. He was a plumber. He occasionally acted as cook. That the man is multifaceted, and he must be ready to put on, that responsibility. So if you're going to marry, you're going to raise children, that's your first test of leadership. And it's tasking. Is not something that you just do flippantly and say, I found a girl and I want to make a family. It's much more than that. I want us to end this on the culture that we came from, and this culture, raising children in with dual cultural influences. Is there anything you're doing to establish good parts of our culture with your children in this part of the world?
Certainly. So one of the things is that I know that is growing up we do is being appreciative, being respectful. Which is something that, as we said, there are always good parts in every culture, right?
Yeah.
I've seen kids here talk to their parents. Even though it's good to give them the freedom to express, but sometimes
not rudely.
Not rudely. So that is one of the things. Like my kids, they know if you're going to ask me for something, you better ask it with respect.
That's right.
You're not entitled to it. So, and that is one of the things.
That's a critical thing you just struck. This issue of entitlement.
That is one of the things that I do, right? You're gonna say please and thank you if I give you something, because otherwise there is so much
liberty.
So much liberty here. They have so much at their disposal that sometimes they just don't appreciate things as much as we do back home because of the scarcity. We don't have growing up, we don't have the luxury that we have right now, at least for me, but now, is it about clothing? Is it about everything? They have a surplus. And sometimes, they can be unappreciative of these things. So I try to remind them that you may have had it easy, but you still have to know that there is scarcity, and that is one of the things. So we try to show them both, we try to, take some of those principles that we've learned, being grateful, being appreciative, being thankful, being respectful.
Yeah.
And then, with what we have also seen that works here, like being able to come to us whenever you have any concerns, being able to express yourself, giving them the choices. So those are the kind of things that we try to, to marry together, and then hope that, and we still learn every day. So we're not perfect. So as parents, as fathers, we still want to learn, we still want to see, and we still want to improve. There are areas of our lives that we can work on. And as soon as we start doing that or trying to work on those things, we hope that our children are also seeing us, that we can grow, and we can, we can grow, and they can also try to work on themselves as well, on whatever they might be going through, and know that we evolve. So we cannot have just one mindset. We must be willing to learn and pick the best of both worlds.
Both worlds, absolutely. That's powerful. It's been a great time. The time is running out fast. You know, the other part that I've just quickly wanted to chip in here is some of the beautiful parts of our culture, which I want to encourage every other person also, is hoping that we don't totally lose our language. I think we should do a lot more of speaking our languages at home to those children. There are other cultures from around the world who live here who do that well. You know, the children will go to school and speak English, but speak your language to them at home. Number two, the cultural part of our life, like prostrating to greet your parents, depending on, you know, what part. The Yoruba people believe so much in that honor has a posture, right? And my children know it. If you wake up in the morning and you don't prostrate, me and you are not friends that day. And the girls must kneel. You know, it's just such that you're giving them a cultural heritage. Like, yeah, you are a citizen of the world, but you also have a root. You have a foundation. And your foundation is beautiful, because I feel that it is low self-esteem when people feel that everything about where they come from is wrong. Of course, we have issues that are not right, but the ones that are right should be, you know, amplified, you know, and it will be a blessing. It's been great talking to you, Jay. Thank you so much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you have gained one thing or the other. I did say it's a continuing conversation. As we wrap up this conversation, one thing is clear. Fatherhood is not fixed in time. It evolves with history, with culture and place. And from the authority-driven, provider-centered model of the 19th century, we've moved to the emotionally present, you know, hands-on father of the 21st century. And so much needs to be unlearned and relearned, and fathers need to know that it's a new world out there. If you use the old syllabus to raise the present children, you're going to lose them. And I mean, you wouldn't even have a connection with them 5, 10, 15 years from now. You don't need to wait until you're 70 to find that out. So for us, becoming fathers in Canada, raised in Africa, is holding two sides of the world, two beautiful sides of the world. And your ability to strike the balance is what brings out the beauty of the father. We hope this conversation encourages you if you are aspiring to be a father or you are already a father. We hope that we have made your day with some of the points we've made. Until we come your way again on Enlightening Conversations, my name is Tobi Adelusi. I want to thank you for watching. Please feel free to engage us in the comment section. We would love to see what you think about the points we have mentioned here. And if you want to suggest topics that you want us to talk about, from parenting, marriage, relationship, you can also drop it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would see you on another episode of Enlightening Conversations. Thank you so much. I will see you again. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.